lovelies. Today I'm kind of reviewing two books in one video because they're very similar. They're by a guy called Hakan Nesser. I read this one and called The Return, and another one called In the Mind's Eye, which I don't know where my mum's put it. So my mum had bought some Nesser books, bought some more Nesser books after I'd given her one. She really enjoyed them, and so I read two of them. This one is significantly worse than the other one I read, just in plotline wise. They are thrillers, they're crime novels, really, really good. I really like Swedish crime novels. The writing style of Nesser is quite funny at times. He's very much your typical crime writer. There's a lot of these like short lines, full stops, like words as sentences, that kind of thing. It can be a bit cheesy. It's very cliche crime writing, but certainly really enjoyable nonetheless, and his plot lines are very, very good. The other one I read, In the Mind's Eye, which was really good, was that man who wakes up not remembering the night before, and he finds his wife murdered in their bath. They're both Inspector Van Veteren mystery. I think all of Nesser's books must be based around this character who obviously is an inspector, and he is the one who encounters all these murders. That kind of thing, that kind of you follow one inspector, doesn't really appeal to me that much. I was a bit kind of put off by the random interludes of stuff about the inspector's life, which I'm much more interested in the actual crimes in the novels. And yeah, I'd certainly say they were definitely light-hearted reads, despite the slightly disturbing nature of them, just because, you know, the writing isn't very good, but the plot lines are interesting, and you get caught up in them, and you can read them in just like, well, I read both of these in like 2 days or whatever, so it's really not hard at all, not hard on the brain, and good holiday read.
Du gör som jag säger, fattar du det? Jag är inte polis längre, och glöm det. Jag gör vad fan jag vill.
Katarina, kom igen.
Så en pensionerad kommissarie från Mardam är på semester med sin son i Kallbringen och passar på att fråga en änka om ett 10 år gammalt mord.
Inspector Van Veteren, when I created him, I didn't realize that I created a character who was going to last for so many books. I just needed a guy because somebody had been killed. I needed an inspector. It was raining. He was supposed to be depressed. Otherwise, I wanted him to be rather old and traditional, a literary traditional sleuth. He should be disillusionized, not very friendly, divorced, well, you know, rough on the outside, but with a golden heart.
Jan Kremper heter han.
Har du någon som kan styrka det?
Kommer du ihåg Heinz Eggers, knarklangaren?
Ja.
Han halshöggs igår kväll.
Det finns ju alltid historier runt omkring som är intressanta. För Van Veteren finns historien med hans son till exempel, i det som vi håller på med just nu. I andra filmer finns det andra berättelser i berättelserna. Så det handlar inte bara om brotten, utan det handlar så mycket om annat också. Alltså i motsats till Beck så intresserar sig inte och Sjöwall Wahlöö. Van Veteren är ju inte politisk i den meningen, och de böckerna är inte på samma sätt som till exempel Sjöwall Wahlöös böcker om Beck och så var på den tiden som de skrev dem. För de var ju tasksparkar mot ett samhälle som skapade det här våldet. Så är kanske Nessers böcker då av mer filosofisk natur.
During these books, it's 10 books, and I'm in control of every other character, but when it comes to Van Veteren, I'm not sure what to write about him. I have to ask him, could I write this about you, yes or no? And he says yes or no, and then I feel that he's somewhere behind me like kind of a father, and I'm not quite sure I understand him. You have so many questions when you write, and you answer them intuitively without knowing why you say yes or no. And I knew I want a fictive country because I would like it myself. I mean, that's the easiest way, is that I write what I would like to read myself. And I like this idea with a fictive country. I'm not sure still why, but it adds something to the story. Perhaps it gets more existentialistic in that way. And also it's more creative for the reader because you can create whatever character you like. So that was my, it was, if I had an idea, that was it, I think. I've published a book in Sweden every year, or some years even 2 books. To me it's my drug to write. To be able to work within the creative process, you should be thankful, and I am thankful. Reading is very important, and reading and writing basically boils down to the same thing. I'm a great reader, and writing is even funnier than reading, so that's why I'm doing it. I'm not sure about the inspiration for writing in the crime genre. I know that when I started out, my first book was a mainstream novel or a love story or whatever, but then my first crime novel could only be written as a crime novel. It's a man who wakes up in the morning and he finds his wife dead in the bathtub, and that's a problem, of course, as everybody knows who has ever found his wife in the bathtub dead. But another problem is that he can't remember what happened last night because he drank too much, and this is a story that you can only tell as a crime story, and that's how I started. I didn't intend to be a crime writer, but then I realized that it's a great genre. I think I'm at the most happy when I've finished the first draft of the story, when the story is there, when I've written it through for whatever 400 or 500 pages, and then I know, oh, it's there. And then what you have to do is the rewriting, but the rewriting is funny because that's you can only make it better. So I think that the happiest moment is when the story is there and you know you managed to sort of finish it for the first time. I do not have a writing routine, but I wish I had one. And I know what writing routine I would have. I would like to get up early in the morning, take a dog for a walk, have breakfast, and then work for 5 or 6 hours. Or as long as I have any words still in my brain, but it never works out that way. I mean, I write periodically. The problem is that you have a chapter in your head and you need to get rid of it somehow, and then you need to write. And if there is no chapter in your head, there is no need to write, to start writing. So, and also I start writing by hand, which is very old-fashioned, but I'm an old man, so I'm allowed to do that. Well, I don't feel really comfortable with being grouped together with anybody because I'm only responsible for my own writing. You write your own books and you're not responsible for what the other writers write in Swedish or Danish or Norwegian or whatever. But I realize that it's a phenomenon of Nordic crime, and so I suppose there is something after all in the Nordic scene, the Nordic countries, that is sort of appealing to readers. Not many crime authors, I mean, I'm more into reading mainstream fiction, but I won't mention any names, I mean, because I read so much, the classic ones and some new ones. In the UK it's definitely Ian McEwan. That was one name that I sort of wanted to because I love his books. He should have the Nobel Prize. I'll see to it when I come back to Stockholm. When I finished my series with Van Veeteren, 10 books, the last book was out in Sweden in 2003, I always got the same question from journalists, German journalists and Swedish journalists and whatever, and they say, will you start a new series now? And I said, no, I will continue to write novels and perhaps crime novels, but never again a new series, because I've written, I think it was 3,600 pages about Van Veeteren, and enough is enough. I stuck to that because I produced 1 or 2 books, but then the first book where Barbarotti appears is Mensch ohne Hund, and it's a kind of a family drama. It's a dysfunctional family. They meet together to celebrate a double birthday. It's just before Christmas, and I described the situation from different angles, and everything went well for 250 pages, and then I realized I needed an inspector, and I didn't want an inspector, so I put it away. When you get a writer's block, you just put the manuscript away and you don't think about it. You sort of hope that it will solve itself automatically, but it didn't. It usually takes a week or 2 weeks, but nothing happened. So after a month, there was a knock on a door inside my head. I opened it, and outside, but inside my head, there was a character who said, "Hello, my name is Gunnar Barbarotti. I'm a chief inspector in Kymlinge. I can help you." And then I let the guy in, and we started talking, and he was interesting. I mean, he he had a very nice relationship with God. Gunnar Barbarotti is basically somebody who's in his 40s, and he asks a lot of questions about life. What's the point of life? Why are we living here? Why do we do these bad deeds that we don't want to do? And he's also interested in, is there a God or not? So he speaks to God. He has a deal with God. And this is something that Van Wieteren never had. And this deal with God, it continues in the rest of the book. But he's one of these characters that I sort of like, because he's open to life and he asks a lot of questions, and hopefully I'm going to write 5 books about him, and book number 5 he will be, well, 50 plus, and he will have come to hopefully some good answers to some of his questions, and his relationship with God will have changed over the books. That is Gunnar Barbarotti basically.